Hey guys, welcome to the Cycle of Life with TES podcast, where we say no to vices and yes to change from inside out. On today's episode, we will be discussing about being successful. We are one body only, one mind only, one deep and abiding intelligence. We are not tiny infinitesimal parts of an infinite and incomprehensible whole, but we are that very whole, that entire mind, that great and vast intelligence from which the universe has evolved, and everything contained within the universe is contained within us, and if we truly understand ourselves, we understand the world and everything in it. You can be anything you want to be, do anything you want to do, tread any path you will to tread, become master of your fate, ordain your future, but you will not do these things by railing against circumstance, by throwing yourself frantically against events and persons simply because they do not seem to be in accord with your plans. Only by perceiving the hidden purpose behind events, the true motivations that actuate people, will you be able to attune yourself to life, to act in accord with the gigantic tides that bring the future. This faculty is yours once you have gleaned the existence of the secret self and have set about striving to live in accord with it rather than with the surface self that has moved you heretofore. We all aspire to goals, desire to improve our understanding and our abilities. We would not be alive if growth were not inherent in us. But oftentimes our growth becomes calcified through being ringed around with impermeable layers of selfishness and conceit. This selfishness is not necessarily just acquisitiveness, it may even be exemplified by an overwhelming generosity. It is simply primary concern for the ego, a living by and in accordance with the little I, that constitutes the average person's knowledge of himself. Such conceit makes knowledge of self a constant judgment, a comparison with others, favorably or unfavorable. It feeds on flattery. And victory is decimated by criticism. Defeat. It has no true existence, but depends entirely upon circumstance and the reactions those circumstances set up within it. As a consequence, it is always exultant or sad, for its impression of itself is that it is either better than or worse than everything that confronts it. It has absolutely no knowledge of equality. Then you need to put the ultimate resources to use. Breaking through the limiting boundaries of the ego into the unimpaired vision and knowledge and joy of the secret self is the undoubted goal of evolution, the purpose of life. This transformation, truly a transfiguration of the mind and spirit, is not an absolute thing but a matter of degree, is partially achieved at this moment by thousands of living persons, is possible of limited attainment by anyone who lives. To exist immersed in the ego is to live a restricted life, to realize only a small fraction of your potentiality. Such deliberate subordination to the dictates of nature is a subjection to pain and suffering and death and decay. Such subjection is normal to lower forms of life, seems part of the plan by which the secret self is emerging from matter, but when consciousness has reached the point where it recognizes its imprisonment, when it sees its subjection to circumstance and pleasure and pain, then it must strive to be free, to establish a truer order for its development. It then must break through the barriers of its awareness, cease living in the ego and attain the widened horizons and powers of the secret self, or it will fall back into the inertia of the sensual nature, lose its capacity for growth and development, and so cease to represent the secret self at all. To the person trapped and resigned to be trapped in the ego, there is no final end but suffering and pain. Only in the divine lie the ultimate resources that overcome all obstacles, and only in seeking to discover the secret self has a man firmly set foot on the one and only path that leads to success, serenity, and joy. Unlocking the giant within you requires struggle. Struggle and sacrifice. Nothing, of course, can be accomplished without a fight. Life itself is a struggle, and each of us enters it daily. It is simply a question of where to expend the effort, pursuing the material wraiths of the physical world that constantly seem to elude us or concentrate on an inner resource that controls the outer world. It is a wise man who expends his energies developing his consciousness. He shortly will find that all the aspects of the world have assumed an order and a benignity he would not have thought possible. All things appear to do his bidding, not because he truly bids them, but because he understands them. It is this knowledge, attained by inner perception, of the potentiality of each thing and circumstance, that leads to beneficent power, that allows a man to move through the most intense conflicts with serenity and surety. He sees the thing to be done because he knows the outcome that must be achieved, and because of this inherent perception of the laws of life and nature. He appears to be modeling each event, shaping each thing, yet it is not he who does this but the secret self within him, to which he has entrusted himself completely and which guides his steps and actions with omnipotent assurance. Will you have the power and assurance and serenity of the secret self? Then there is something you must give up. You must give up the ego, that thing within you that you always have thought to be your very self. You must seek to shed that sense of separateness. That is a product of your surface mind, and to search deep within your consciousness for the pure core of being that is the self of all things. It will not be easy. The sensual nature with its constantly distracting stimuli brings daily clarion calls from the outer world. But if your life has provided you full measure of pain and frustration from chasing these tempters and deceivers, then you will face them with resistance and resolve to pursue them no more. The path to power lies within you. All things will be found there. The fight is not between the world and you, but between your ego and your true self. Simply choose to find your true self and have nothing to lose. Thanks for listening to the Cycle of Life with TES podcast. Remember, no devices and yes to change from inside out.